Hello, many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Ethiopia has submitted its position to the UN Security Council on the AU-led tripartite negotiation on the GERD. This was revealed while the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs briefed the media on current issues, including the border dispute between Ethiopia and Sudan and the humanitarian situation in the Tigray region. Explaining the border dispute between Ethiopia and Sudan, Ambassador Dina Mufti said Ethiopia still believes in peaceful resolution. Kasahun Chani reports.
The spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia has presented the ministry's weekly press briefing focusing on various diplomatic activities of the ministry. Speaking on the occasion, the spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ethiopia, Dina Mufti, stated that Ethiopia has submitted its position to the United Nations Security Council on the African Union-led tripartite negotiation on the ground Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, adding the latter submitted to make Ethiopia's position clear to members of the United Nations Security Council with details of the negotiation process and clarifies major issues regarding the dam's construction.
Ethiopia has written a letter to the Security Council expressing the fact that Ethiopia is committed to the AU-led process, though the other two countries, Egypt and Sudan, are not cooperative in that regard. They were undermining the AU-led process by coming with other alternatives, by proposing what they call quartet, and in fact derail the efforts by the AU. In that letter, Ethiopia has expressed its commitment to the AU-led process, that the AU-led process will be fruitful. Discussions under the AU would create a conducive atmosphere for solving the issues related with the GERD.
Dina also commended the provocative behavior of Sudan on the joint border, citing Earth's crisis for the two nations. Regarding the Renaissance Dam, the move being taken by Egypt and Sudan to withdraw from the African Union-led negotiation is unacceptable to Ethiopia. Dina also emphasized that Ethiopia is continuing its unwavering stance on the tripartite talks being held under the auspices of the African Union.
With regard to Ethiopia-Sudan border, Ethiopia still is committed and reiterates its commitment to the peaceful resolutions of the differences between the two countries. Ethiopia wants to go back to the process of negotiations, yield reasonable agreements between the two countries.
The spokesperson added that the government has been doing its level best to improve situations in Tigray.
The relief operations in the northern part of Ethiopia, Tigray, and the fact that the government is really in the business of delivering the major portion of the relief to the affected people, and the reconstruction process is underway as well. The fact that the government is also willing to open, to allow a process for the investigation of the human rights violations. The government is doing its level best to improve situations. The joint investigations by the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, the UN commissions on the alleged atrocities also will commence very soon.
Part of Ethiopia's current citizens sent to diplomacy, more than 1,059 Ethiopians have been repatriated from Jeddah, Yemen and Riyadh last week.
Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Dammaqe Mokonnin has held talks with European Union Commissioner for Crisis Management, Ambassador Janez Lenarčič, on various issues. The two sides have had discussions over the commendable efforts that the government has been undertaking so far and ways to mitigate observed challenges in delivering humanitarian support to affected people in the Tigray region. Commissioner Lenarčič appreciated the improved access in the region that cut bureaucratic diplomatic hurdles, while he pointed out that the intensification of the campaign in the region made some rural areas inaccessible to the humanitarian support. Ambassador Lunarchik commended the agreement of Ethiopian Human Rights Commission and UN to jointly investigate alleged human rights violations in the region and appreciated the announcement of the withdrawal of Eritrean troops, underscoring the need to expedite the process. The Deputy Prime Minister on his part said commendable improvements have been registered so far in improving the lives of many people in Tigray, although the government is still facing enormous challenges to tackle there. The government is ready to mitigate the problems observed in the region, and partners would register better results in this regard if they constructively engage in supporting the government's genuine efforts than wasting time in throwing unnecessary criticisms, he said. Regarding the visa extension request by partners, Demek said the government is further consulting on the issue, while the quest for access to communication equipment by humanitarian partners in the region will be handled by the guidelines that have been recently distributed regarding the matter. Defend Ethiopia has been set up in Europe to avert the spread of misinformation by diplomats and lobbyists on social media and international media against Ethiopia. The task force, which focuses on correcting false information spread through diplomacy, social and international media, and reducing logistical pressure on the government, is said to be crucial to help the Ethiopian government's comprehensive reform. Ethiopian ambassador to the United Kingdom, Teferi Mellese, said, Defend Ethiopia, which brings more than 70 senior scholars and young social media activists in the UK together, is believed to reduce the significant impact of misinformation being spread by European MPs, academic groups, and international media. He said the role of Ethiopians abroad is crucial to explain that the propaganda of some European parliamentarians, collaborative misinformation with TPLF remnants to revive the criminal clique is helpless. Ambassador Teferi Mellese said, despite repeated efforts to thwart the reform process over the past 3 years, peace talks and efforts to build a win-win system have failed. He reiterated Ethiopians and Ethiopian nationals need to be united for the national interest more than ever to foil Egypt and Sudan's conspiracy. Ethiopians and Ethiopian nationals, for their part, pledged to play their part in strengthening the campaign for digital diplomacy and to address accurate information about Ethiopia to the international community.
Ethiopia is the source of the Blue Nile and contributes over 85% of the Nile's stream flow. To this day, Egypt and Sudan are using 100% of the water, sticking to their 1959 colonial agreement between them. Not being signatories, Ethiopia and other upstream states do not recognize this agreement. Ethiopia is at the eve of completing the Great Renaissance Dam. Costing over $5 billion that is being paid by ordinary Ethiopians. This dam will generate 5.1 gigawatt of power, and it is a non-consumptive, eco-friendly, existential necessity to millions. The three countries have been in dispute over the construction, filling and operation of this dam. Even thought this dam provides major benefits to Sudan and Egypt in terms of reducing evaporation loss, silt, sedimentation and unexpected flood. This dam is not just about generating power. It is a matter of survival for millions of Ethiopians who deserve a dignified life as their Egyptian counterparts.
You're watching Addis News Hour. Ethiopian representative to the Public Diplomacy Institute in South Korea, Rahel Sarbesa, articulates Ethiopia's upper hand rank in the GERD diplomacy. She called upon Ethiopians to defy the widespread circulation of misinformation about the GERD. Emmanuel Jogi reports.
An Ethiopian public diplomat based in South Korea, Rahel Sarbesa, told ATV that Ethiopia is in the upper hand compared to Egypt and Sudan's diplomacy in trilateral negotiations over the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam.
We are in the upper hand when we compare the Egyptian diplomacy, the Sudanese and the Ethiopians. The Ethiopians did not change their stances toward the GERD. They're always saying that according to the technical or the other issues, we are not going to harm them. So this has to be our stance. Even if GERD is filled, we're not going to harm the Egyptian population or the Sudanese. So we are taking the upper hand, I think, in this case.
She emphasized Egypt is messing around with false propagandas on the GERD, disseminating through different social media platforms, which Ethiopians should counter.
Egyptians, they use multiple strategies. Sometimes they try to disseminate a false information that the GERD is going to cause harm to the population. So they have a phobia toward this GERD. So in this case, we have to correct the international communities that GERD is not going to cause harm to them, right? Mm-hmm. So in this case, we have to change the perception of the world, also the perception of the Egyptian population or the Sudanese about its merits and demerits.
The public diplomat suggested Ethiopia to have direct strategy and goals in digital diplomacy in order to specify who's going to be addressed in the international arena.
We need to have a direct strategy or a goals, how we are going to influence the population of the Egypt. Are we going to influence the population of the Egypt, or are we going to influence the population of the international community? We need to have specific targets. So if we have a specific targets, it is easy to change their perception toward this GERD.
With regard to the laggard of tripartite negotiations, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed requested the African Union chairperson to call the meeting of the African Union Bureau of Assembly in a letter addressed to the Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok. The AU-led process over the disputed Mega Dam project to provide an opportunity to deal with the three countries was interrupted for 9 rounds so far.
Welcome back again. Government Communication Affairs Office of the Amhara State said the recent demonstrations in the Amhara regional state demand to preserve human and democratic rights across the country. Briefing journalist, director of the Communication Office, Gzacha Mulune, said the people of Amhara are undertaking demonstrations in various towns in the state, calling the government to ensure peace and stability.
ዋና ዋና ከተሞች እየተደረጉ ነው ያሉት ከዚህ ውስጥ የባህር ዳር ደብረ ማርቆስ
Demonstrations were held in Bahar Dar, Debre Marcos, Dese, Haik, Waldia and Kombolcha towns. The objective of this demonstration is to oppose mass killings and inhuman acts against the Amhara people. The demonstrations have also a great message to the federal government to exercise the well-being of its citizens as well as stop wrong deeds against the Amhara people. Demonstrators are also expressing their sadness and sorrow to the federal government. However, they were ended peacefully.
However, Gzacha called upon some of the demonstrators to refrain from erroneous activities that go against the objective of the demonstrations.
ሰልፍ ወጥቶ በሰላማዊ መንገድ በአብዛኛው ተጠናቀቀ መልእክቶችም ጤነኛ ናቸው በአብዛኛው ይባል እንጂ አንዳንዶቹ መልእክቶች ስብናን ሚነኩ
Most demonstrators were peaceful, but we have seen some wrong messages. Even some groups are calling the name of individuals wrongly. We have strong positions that the upcoming election can solve the problem of the Amhara people as well as other brothers too. In some areas, we have seen some demonstrators laceration the symbol of other political parties. This is not good motive for all of us. There is no solution from it. Even we couldn't save the Amhara people too. If we are not managing these problems, we couldn't have good results. We have to ask our desire within peaceful and democratic manner.
Some opposition political parties in Ethiopia are vowing to work for constitutional amendment or change if they get elected. The country's political parties running for the 6th general elections are currently holding debates on existing Ethiopia's constitution and the federal system. Demis Makria reports.
Ethiopia schedules its 6th national election to take place in June 2021. With a few weeks remaining, political parties are currently debating on a number of issues ranging from federalism to constitution and political and economic policies as well. The president of NAT party, Saifa Selassie Ayalo, said the current constitution needs significant amendment, but everything will be done after making discussions with the general public.
The ethnic-based federal system, which we have systematically implemented over the last 30 years, has costed us thousands of our citizens' lives, millions of displaced people, billions of wasted resources. As a result of which, what we say is we have to remake the constitution.
Tasfaye Teshome from All Ethiopian Unity Party, however, argues the current constitution is not the result of public participation. Hence, his party, if elected, will introduce a new constitution which will change the current federal system.
Our people does not participate. Our people does not participate on this constitution, right? Totally, TPLF has formed this TPLF by power. Nobody says this constitution, anyone, anything. That is why this constitution is not really a constitution. It is the manifesto. It's not constitution totally. You can say it is constitution, not constitution. It is a manifesto.
Adam Farah from Prosperity Party, for his part, stated, Prosperity Party will go on implementing the current constitutional federalism, but the implementation will be different from the past TPLF regime.
ፓርቲያችን ሀገራችን አሁን ባለችበት ተጨባጭ ሁኔታ ህገ መንግስታዊ ከሆነው ህብረ ብሔራዊ ፌደራል ስርዓት ሌላ የፌደራል ስርዓት ተግባራዊ ማድረግ የሚያስችል አስቻይ ሁኔታ አለ ብሎ አያምንም።
Our party believes that there is no enabling condition to implement any form of federal system other than the current one. As some parties say, we never agree with other forms of federalism which endangers people's self-administration right and may take our country to severe problem. So we will genuinely implement the multi-ethnic federalism system and will correct its drawbacks consulting with the people.
Ethiopia is currently grappling with several issues, and time will tell if the upcoming election will have an impact to solve such problems.